Hi everyone. We have a author here, which I know many people are going to get a lot out of this book. Welcome, Toby.
Thank you. Thanks, Susan, for having me.
So, Toby Morrison's book is Get Your Life Back, and it's a step-by-step recovery guide to chronic fatigue syndrome. So, Toby, you've suffered a lot from chronic fatigue and syndrome. And I know that you help thousands of people, with this. And a lot of people struggle with this. You've helped so many really all over the world
Hmm.
to get their life back. Can you share just some of your personal journey or
Mhm.
personal story that's really helped you get your own life back on track?
Yeah, for sure. So, about 2 decades ago, over 20 years ago, I suffered from chronic fatigue syndrome myself. As a teenager, it was the most excruciatingly painful thing I went through. I went from being an elite basketball player to basically not being able to lift my head off a pillow. And it was a scary time. Like, not only just the suffering physically, like the pain and the actual symptoms of chronic fatigue syndrome, but more so the suffering of I couldn't be a teenager and just live my life. And so that affected me majorly, massively with an identity crisis as well. Just the fact that I couldn't run, I couldn't play sport, I couldn't do what I was known to do. And my goal was to become a professional basketball player, almost standing at 2 meters tall. So to have like my dreams kind of dashed ahead of me was pretty tough. And then I went through this, I guess, 4.5 year journey of getting my life back. And I remember in one of my darkest days, I wrote on a piece of paper at the age of 16 that one day this will all make sense. And one day when I do get better, I'm going to make sure no one else has to suffer like I did. And so as I got better and when I got better at the age of around 18, 19 years old, I just started studying health and fitness and well-being and mindset and lifestyle. And then I started helping people at an early age. And so that's almost 2 decades ago professionally have been working with people. And then of course in 2013, I set up the world's first online Done With You recovery program. In our first year, we helped 200 people in 14 countries, which is pretty wild. And then obviously since then, we've helped thousands of people in 78 countries. It's not just me, I've got a whole team of people all around the world now helping people get their life back. And so writing
That's
this book,
incredible.
writing this book was, I guess, my way of giving back to the people, not through our actual professional program, but just for people who maybe don't want to do that, but just want something in their hands that they can read and it's tangible and practical.
I absolutely love that. That would have been a lot for a teenage boy in the prime of his sporting career
Mm.
to deal with that. And I know that you talk in the book about the cycle of pushing and crashing and how establishing a baseline is imperative to your own health. Can you share a little bit about that for us?
Yeah, so basically, when someone is a healthy, functioning human being and then they get something like chronic fatigue syndrome, they're usually operating still, even when they're sick, they're operating from their old self, right? So in their mind, they still think they should be able to run, they should be able to walk fast, they should be able to work or insert XYZ of whatever they're used to doing. So it's very common for people with chronic fatigue syndrome to be high achievers, overdoers, and type A personalities. There's a tendency to overdo it. Now, unfortunately, when you've got chronic fatigue syndrome, your brain and body is in an energy deficit. So they don't have surplus energy to use. And so by pushing and crashing, they stay in the cycle of being sick. And so one of the first things I teach in the book and in our program is to establish a baseline, which is ultimately a routine and structure that is appropriate for their current capacity of where they're at right now, so we can start to build body wisdom and that efficiency with the brain and the body so they can start to get better and put themselves in a restore zone, so an energy surplus, so they can start to get better. But yeah, like the pushing and crashing thing, and I guess like even the graphic that we chose for the front of the book is really getting out of the red zone and then getting back into the green zone. And so in the book, I basically share how, why, and then the science behind that too.
I love that. And I know that you've got so many people, like I said, that have been able to get this advanced copy. Some of these members that have had the privilege of getting hold of this, eagerly waiting to get the book. Can you tell me what some of these people have already said from reading your book?
Yeah, so within the first 48 hours, like before we launched it, we're launching it to the world very shortly. We basically shipped out over 1,000 copies. And it's been really cool because we've worked with so many people over the years. Like people have been waiting for years to have this book, and the feedback's been amazing. Funnily enough, we've got a lot of clients who are published authors themselves, or they're academics, or they're creatives. And one lady who actually was a journalist in a previous life, she was like, "Wow, Toby, like this is an incredibly well written book. Like the structure, even the design of the book, which was from your end, Dean Publishing, helping me basically format the book so it's so easy to read, particularly for people with brain fog and chronic illness. It's not that easy to pay attention. Everything's been thought after, and even it's been a longer process than we all anticipated, but we wanted to make sure that the book was just like, I'm not going to say perfect, because we always say progress over perfection, but it's gone from good to great. And the feed, I haven't had one bad, like, even doctors are reading it going, this is brilliant. And so it just feels good to have a really good book in the world that is going to last a long time.
And it's that dream, like you said, of that young boy that struggled on his own. This is a book that you could have
Yeah.
had maybe when you were back then that would have changed your life. And I know you talk a lot about mindset. Why does that help when you're talking about a chronic illness?
When you go through something like chronic illness, it doesn't just affect you neurologically and physically, which is obviously that's what it is, that condition, but it has a secondary suffering attached to it, which is your mindset, right? Like if I took away everything from you today that you normally do day to day with ease, you'd be pretty upset about it. You'd have anxiety, you'd have depression, you'd be worried about the future, you'd be grieving the past. And so mindset is a huge component to recovery. It's not the cornerstone to recovery, but it's vital, because ultimately chronic fatigue syndrome affects every area of your life. Therefore, we need to reverse engineer that, and mindset's a huge part. The grieving process, the acceptance piece, and then progressing back into life and building a new life so you can actually get healthy and start living again.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. Well, I know that you've done this book in the physical form, and it is one big book. You've jam-packed so much information in here. You've done an audio book as well. There's lots in here that people can actually read, and there's even some takeaways that people can get in the book as well. Incredibly challenging to pull all that together. What I suppose has been this experience of getting it out there, and what are you hoping that readers get from this book?
Yeah, it took a lot to write that book. I published a book 12, 13 years ago now. And funnily enough, like the size of this book, like I'm a big guy, my hands are huge, 2 meters tall and over 100 kilograms. But the first book was a quarter of the size. So this book, what I say, the first book was about me, and it was my hero's journey, and it was about Toby Morrison getting his life back. This book is about the person whose book is in their hands and basically helping them get their life back. So you can see how thick it is. Every single chapter is basically a step in the recovery process, broken down into specific areas of recovery. So it's my hope that ultimately it's the biggest hope book that they possibly ever have in their hands, in terms of giving them hope. And then more so, like, I care about that, but I hate it when people say, oh, I hope it helps me. I say, don't hope so, know so. This is not a hope book. This is a practical guide to basically getting your life back. And of course, there's so much hope and inspiration there. I share so many stories of case studies of all walks of life, of all different countries, of all different ages and severities get their life back. And so I think people will really resonate and find resonation with at least one of those stories and go, wow, if they can do it, I can do it too.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Toby, for sharing your wisdom in this book, for just putting all your knowledge and helping those when you were so stuck and struggling at such a young age. There's so many people now that are going to be able to grab this book and be able to get their life back through your sharing all your knowledge and your story. So we thank you so much. There'll be links below for you to grab your book. As we said, it's in a physical form, ebook, audio book. There'll be links below. Grab your copy, have a read, and thanks so much, Toby, for sharing your message to help so many in the world around chronic fatigue.
Well, thank you so much for helping me publish it. This is really a compass. It's a compass for recovery. And so, yeah, I just can't wait for whoever is listening to have this in their hands and to share it with friends and family who need it. And it's going to be life-changing for them.
Beautiful. Thanks so much. Grab it via your link below.
Pleasure.